Keisha had always been aware that people judged her before they even knew her. Growing up in her neighborhood, she had faced plenty of stares and whispers because of her size. Kids at school would tease her, calling her names that hurt more than she could ever express. Adults, even strangers, would sometimes give her looks that made her feel invisible or unwanted. But deep inside, Keisha carried a quiet determination. She had learned early that the world would not always be kind, and that it was her responsibility to prove to herself what she was capable of. From a young age, Keisha had been fascinated by martial arts. She loved the idea that skill, focus, and practice could make someone strong in ways that went beyond just physical appearance. While others assumed she would never be athletic or agile, Keisha spent hours reading about different fighting styles, watching videos, and imagining herself moving with precision and power. She started attending a community self-defense class at the local center, a small place with worn-out mats and a friendly instructor who encouraged everyone, no matter their size or experience. The class wasn't easy for Keisha. At first, she struggled with balance, coordination, and stamina. Her classmates often moved faster, kicked higher, and performed combinations more fluidly. But she never let that stop her. She practiced at home, repeating movements in front of a mirror, slowly perfecting each step, each stance, each block and strike. She learned that progress didn't come overnight and that consistency mattered more than raw talent. Every small improvement gave her a sense of pride and fueled her determination to keep going. Keisha's reputation at the community center was a mix of admiration and doubt. Some people respected her perseverance and the focus she brought to her training, while others still underestimated her because of her appearance. She had grown used to these contrasting reactions. It didn't bother her anymore. What mattered most was how she felt about herself and the skills she was building. One afternoon, the community center was busier than usual. Local martial artists and enthusiasts often came to practice or watch, and the energy in the room was different. Keisha was stretching on the mats, focusing on her breathing, when a group of black belts walked in. They were tall, fit, and exuded confidence. From the moment they entered, heads turned. People whispered, impressed by their skill and stature. Keisha noticed them too, but she didn't feel intimidated. Instead, she felt a surge of focus. She had prepared for moments like this. The black belts moved around the gym, looking at the people training, and eventually their eyes landed on Keisha. They had heard of her from whispers in the community center, some admiration, some doubt. But none of them had expected to see her in person. They walked over, smiling in a way that suggested they intended to test her skills. Keisha noticed the smirks, the overconfidence in their posture, and she knew exactly what was coming. One of the black belts spoke first, his voice confident and loud enough to draw the attention of everyone in the room. He made a joking remark about her size, expecting a laugh or a nervous reaction. But Keisha stayed silent. She didn't need to respond with words. Her calm demeanor said everything. She was ready. She had faced people underestimating her countless times, and she had learned how to turn that underestimation into her advantage. The group of black belts circled her, each trying to gauge her reaction. Some assumed she would step back. Others thought she might try to run or look for help. But Keisha stood her ground. She focused on her breathing, feeling her heart steady, and reminding herself of all the hours she had spent practicing. Every block, every kick, every stance she had perfected was ready. Her mind was sharp, alert to every movement around her. She understood that confidence could be more powerful than speed or strength alone. As the first black belt made a casual move forward, trying to intimidate her, Keisha shifted slightly. She wasn't aggressive, but she wasn't backing down either. Her eyes remained calm and her body was ready. She had learned to read people's movements, to anticipate their actions, and to react with precision. This wasn't just about physical skill. It was about strategy and presence. People often overlooked that the mind could be just as strong as the body. The spectators in the room started to gather, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. Whispers filled the air, speculation about what this confrontation would look like. Many assumed the black belts would dominate her quickly, but Keisha had learned that assumptions could be dangerous. She had spent years preparing for moments when others doubted her. She knew she could handle herself, and more importantly, she knew that she could prove that strength wasn't always visible. Keisha's training had not just been physical. She had worked on her mental resilience, learning to stay calm under pressure, to control her fear, and to act decisively when the moment demanded it. Every scenario she had imagined in her mind prepared her for this exact moment. She had faced small challenges before, but this was different. This was a test of everything she had learned, and she was ready to face it head-on. The black belts began to make light movements toward her, testing her reactions. Keisha noticed the patterns in their approach, the way they moved with confidence and expectation. She analyzed each step, each shift in weight, preparing to use her skills efficiently. Years of practice had taught her that precision and timing mattered more than raw force. She could leverage her knowledge to make a powerful impact even against opponents who were physically stronger. Her mind was clear. She thought about all the moments in her life when she had been doubted, ignored, or dismissed. She thought about the long nights of practice, the small victories that had built her confidence, and the people who had believed in her when others did not. Each memory fueled her focus. She understood that this was not about proving anything to the spectators, but about demonstrating what she already knew, that she was capable and strong. As the first black belt moved slightly closer, she adjusted her stance. Her body felt light, ready to react instantly. She wasn't thinking about hurting anyone. Her goal was to demonstrate control and skill. Her hands moved naturally to block. Her feet shifted with balance, and her eyes stayed on the movements around her. Every muscle in her body responded to her training, as if the years of preparation had culminated in this single moment. The room felt heavy with anticipation. Everyone watching held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Keisha's calmness stood in contrast to the confidence of the black belts. They expected fear, hesitation, or at least surprise. What they didn't expect was quiet determination. She was a paradox to them, calm yet ready, seemingly unassuming yet filled with hidden skill. Keisha's thoughts remained focused on her breathing and movements. She reminded herself that this was not a show, but a challenge. Her objective was to act with precision, not anger. She visualized the next steps, anticipating how each opponent might move and how she could respond. Her training had taught her that awareness and preparation could overcome any sudden attack. She trusted herself completely. The black belts exchanged glances, realizing that she wasn't reacting as they had expected. Her calm composure unsettled them slightly, but their overconfidence still held. They moved with the assumption that the confrontation would be quick. Keisha's presence, however, projected control. She didn't need to speak or demonstrate aggression. Her body language alone communicated readiness, confidence, and awareness. Keisha felt a subtle shift in energy in the room. The spectators sensed that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The air was thick with tension, but she remained centered. Her focus was not on the crowd, not on the whispers, but on the movements around her. She understood that this moment was hers to navigate. She had trained for years to be ready for challenges just like this, and she trusted in her preparation. As the black belts prepared to move in more decisively, Keisha adjusted her stance again, keeping her balance and maintaining awareness of every angle. She knew that speed alone was not enough. She had to use technique, leverage, and timing. Her body had been trained to respond instinctively, and her mind was sharp, analyzing each movement to predict the next. She was ready for whatever came next. The first part of the confrontation had begun. Keisha's calm presence and readiness were in stark contrast to the confident smirks of the black belts. She had become a figure of quiet strength, embodying years of practice, determination, and resilience. The room waited in anticipation, sensing that the story of what was about to happen would be remembered for a long time. Every step she had taken to prepare for this moment had led her here. Her hours of practice, her perseverance through judgment and doubt, and her focus on both mind and body had built a foundation that no one could easily shake. Keisha stood ready, fully aware that the next movements would define the immediate outcome, but confident in the skills she had honed and the strength she carried within. The black belts were about to learn that appearances could be deceiving, and that real skill and confidence often came from unseen preparation and inner belief. Keisha had faced doubt all her life, and now, standing in the center of the gym, she was prepared to turn that doubt into a moment of undeniable proof, showing that strength is not always measured by size or outward appearance, but by focus, determination, and the courage to stand strong when it matters most. Keisha's heart continued to beat steadily as the black belts circled around her, each one moving with the assumption that this would be an easy display of skill. They were confident, almost arrogant, thinking that her size and quiet demeanor made her an easy target. But Keisha had learned long ago that confidence could be misleading. and she had spent years preparing for moments exactly like this. She stood in the center of the gym, her body relaxed yet alert, every muscle ready to respond. As the black belts moved closer, trying to gauge her reactions, Keisha studied their movements carefully. She noticed the subtle shifts in their weight, the way their feet were positioned, and the timing of their gestures. Every detail mattered. She had learned that observing and predicting the opponent's next move was just as important as physical strength or speed. Her mind was calm, focused, and fully aware. One of the black belts stepped forward first, making a light, testing move as if to provoke a reaction. He expected her to flinch or step back, maybe even apologize or make a nervous comment. Instead, Keisha remained still, her eyes locked on him, her stance steady. She didn't react immediately. She waited for the right moment, knowing that timing and precision would make all the difference. Years of training had taught her to remain composed under pressure, and she trusted her instincts completely. The spectators in the gym began to murmur, sensing that this confrontation was unlike anything they had seen before. People whispered to each other, speculating on what might happen, unsure of what to expect. Keisha could feel the energy in the room, but she didn't let it distract her. She focused solely on the movements of the black belts, on her own balance, and on the strategies she had prepared for countless imagined scenarios. Another black belt moved in, this time with a more assertive approach. He swung his arm in a controlled strike, expecting her to react quickly, perhaps defensively. Keisha's body moved naturally, a combination of reflex and trained technique. She shifted her weight, sidestepping just enough to avoid the movement and then using a subtle guiding motion to redirect the force. Her movements were not aggressive, but they were precise, demonstrating skill and control. The black belt stumbled slightly, surprised by the effectiveness of her reaction. The other black belts began to adjust, realizing that she was not as easy to handle as they had assumed. They exchanged glances, some of them showing the first signs of doubt. Keisha noticed this, but she didn't let it affect her focus. She knew that her task was not to intimidate or humiliate, but to respond with skill and clarity, demonstrating her own capabilities. Her training had emphasized control, not ego, and she intended to follow that principle. Keisha's movements flowed naturally, each one a combination of technique, awareness, and timing. She had spent countless hours practicing, learning to balance her body, anticipate movements, and use leverage effectively. These skills allowed her to counter the black belt's advances without relying solely on brute strength. She was quick, efficient, and deliberate in every motion, turning the confidence of her opponents into opportunities for demonstration. The black belts, realizing that she was not responding as expected, tried to coordinate their approach. They moved together, hoping that numbers would give them an advantage. Keisha remained calm. She didn't panic. Instead, she adjusted her stance slightly, shifting her center of gravity, and prepared to use their momentum against them. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing the angles, timing, and possibilities. She knew that strategy and calmness could overcome any perceived physical advantage. The first black belt attempted a more direct move, approaching with a slightly wider stance and faster movement. Keisha responded by guiding him gently but firmly off balance, using his own momentum to cause a stumble. He landed lightly on the mat, more surprised than hurt. The spectators gasped, unable to believe what they had just seen. The confidence of the black belts was being challenged in a way no one had anticipated. Another black belt tried to intervene, moving quickly and confidently, but Keisha anticipated the direction of his motion. With a subtle shift and a guiding touch, she redirected his energy, causing him to lose balance and stumble slightly before regaining footing. Every action she took was calculated, showing mastery and precision. She didn't need to shout or show aggression. Her control over her movements was enough to demonstrate her capability. The gym was filled with a tense energy. Spectators leaned forward, some whispering in disbelief, others simply watching with awe. Keisha could feel the attention, but she didn't let it distract her. She was focused on each movement, each subtle shift in weight, each moment of anticipation. She understood that this confrontation was not just about physical skill, but about focus, strategy, and self-confidence. Her preparation allowed her to remain composed even in a high-pressure situation. As the black belts adjusted their approach again, trying to regain dominance, Keisha remained centered. She had trained to maintain balance and composure, even when outnumbered or underestimated. Every muscle, every reflex, every learned instinct was in play. She was not just reacting. She was predicting, analyzing, and responding with calm precision. Her quiet confidence became more powerful than any display of aggression. The black belts began to realize that their assumptions had been wrong. They had underestimated her because of her appearance and quiet demeanor. Keisha had proven that skill, focus, and self-belief could outweigh assumptions and physical stereotypes. The tension in the room shifted from anticipation to astonishment. People began to recognize that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Keisha's calm and precise actions were teaching a lesson without words. She moved with smooth efficiency, anticipating the next approach and redirecting energy in a way that left the black belts momentarily off balance. Her movements were controlled, demonstrating both skill and restraint. She had no desire to harm anyone. Her goal was to show her capability and control. Each redirection, each subtle adjustment of stance, highlighted her mastery and careful preparation. The black belts tried to coordinate again, hoping to regain confidence and assert dominance. Keisha anticipated this, adjusting her position to maintain balance and control. Her eyes remained focused, her body poised, and her mind analyzing every possibility. She understood that maintaining calm, predicting movements, and using technique were far more effective than brute strength. This was not about fighting recklessly. It was about demonstrating skill and precision. The spectators continued to watch, their whispers growing louder, filled with admiration and disbelief. They could see that Keisha's skill went beyond appearances. She moved with the confidence of someone who had faced challenges, practiced diligently, and refused to be defined by assumptions. Her actions spoke louder than words, teaching a lesson in focus, preparation, and inner strength. Keisha's calmness was her greatest advantage. The black belt's confidence began to waver as they realized that she was not intimidated. They had expected hesitation or fear, but she showed neither. Instead, she demonstrated readiness, composure, and skill. Her quiet strength became more apparent with every movement, leaving the onlookers impressed and the black belts questioning their assumptions. She anticipated another approach and adjusted smoothly, maintaining balance while redirecting energy with precision. Every movement was deliberate, every action controlled. She was proving that preparation, focus, and self-confidence were more powerful than mere physical size or outward appearance. The gym was filled with a mix of astonishment, admiration, and respect for the skill she displayed. The black belts, realizing the confrontation was not going as planned, began to slow their approach. They were no longer as confident, and subtle signs of hesitation appeared. Keisha remained calm, poised, and ready for the next movement. She understood that her demonstration was not about aggression, but about proving that control, skill, and inner strength mattered more than assumptions or appearances. The room seemed to hold its breath as Keisha continued to respond to their movements. Her focus and precision made it clear that she was not just defending herself. She was demonstrating mastery and control. The black belts, despite their previous confidence, were now faced with the reality that their assumptions had been completely wrong. She had prepared for this moment, and her preparation was evident in every move. Keisha continued to move with calm efficiency, guiding and redirecting the black belt's momentum without aggression, showing that skill, focus, and confidence could overcome physical assumptions. The spectators were captivated, realizing that they were witnessing not just a display of martial arts, but a lesson in resilience, preparation, and self-belief. Her every move was calculated, her body balanced, and her mind sharp. She demonstrated that strength was not always visible, and that confidence and preparation could turn a seemingly impossible challenge into a clear display of capability. The black belts, now aware that their initial assumptions had been false, began to acknowledge her skill silently, a subtle sign of respect emerging in their expressions. The confrontation continued with quiet intensity. Keisha remained calm, focused, and precise. Every action highlighted her training, dedication, and resilience. She had taken years of preparation, doubt, and perseverance and transformed it into a moment of undeniable skill. Her presence was commanding, not through loudness or aggression, but through precision, awareness, and unwavering confidence. The energy in the gym shifted. Spectators began to recognize the lesson unfolding before them. Keisha, once underestimated, was now a figure of quiet strength, demonstrating that preparation, focus, and inner belief could triumph over assumptions and appearances. The black belts, despite their experience, were learning a profound lesson about skill, respect, and humility. By the end of the confrontation, Keisha stood composed, calm, and centered. She had responded to every approach with control and precision, proving her capability without aggression. The black belts, now aware of the depth of her skill, began to reassess their assumptions. Keisha had demonstrated that appearances could be deceiving, and that real strength often lay in preparation, focus, and self-confidence. The tension in the gym reached its peak. Keisha had been standing calmly, observing every move, waiting for the moment to act. The black belts were growing more impatient, their confidence shaken by the quiet control she demonstrated. They underestimated her once, but now they were realizing that size and outward appearance could be deceiving. Keisha's preparation, patience, and mental focus were about to make the difference. With a swift, fluid motion, Keisha reacted. The first black belt lunged forward with a confident punch, certain he could intimidate her. Keisha shifted slightly to the side, moving almost as if the air itself had guided her. She redirected his momentum using his own force, causing him to stumble forward and land on the gym floor with a surprised thud. The sound echoed and a hush fell over the spectators. No one had expected such a rapid, controlled response from her. The other black belts froze, eyes wide. They had assumed she would hesitate, maybe flinch, or even step back. Instead, she had used their own movement against them in a way that was precise and effective. Keisha didn't gloat or shout. She simply remained calm, waiting for the next move. Her presence exuded confidence, and it was clear that she had practiced and prepared for this very moment. One of them quickly regained balance and stepped in, attempting to coordinate with the others. They thought that working together would overcome her. Keisha anticipated this. Her eyes followed the subtle shifts in weight, the small cues of muscle tension, and the timing of their footwork. With each advance, she responded with exact movements, using leverage and timing to keep the upper hand. The black belts, despite their experience, were surprised at the efficiency and control she exhibited. She didn't strike aggressively. Instead, her motions were strategic. A slight redirection here, a subtle twist there, and another black belt stumbled off balance. The speed of her actions was remarkable. But what amazed the onlookers even more was the control she maintained. No unnecessary force, no reckless movements, just skill and precision guiding every action. The gym seemed suspended in the intensity of the moment. Spectators watched, mouths slightly open, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Whispers spread. She's incredible. I can't believe how fast and precise she is. Keisha remained focused on the task at hand. The gasps and murmurs didn't distract her. They were just background noise. Her mind was clear, her body poised, ready for the next move. The black belts tried to recover, adjusting their approach, hoping to regain control, but Keisha was ready for them. Each time they made a move, she subtly redirected it, guiding them off balance with an almost effortless grace. Her years of practice, the countless hours of honing her skills in private, had culminated in this moment. Every block, every shift of weight, every step was a demonstration of patience and mastery. The first 5 seconds of the encounter had passed, and already the black belts were on the ground one by one. Spectators gasped, some leaning forward, unable to tear their eyes away. They had never seen someone so underestimated display such strength, precision, and confidence. Keisha's movements were not only effective but also elegant. She had transformed what could have been a chaotic confrontation into a controlled, almost artful display of skill. Keisha's calmness was her secret weapon. She wasn't reacting out of fear or anger. She was using her knowledge and preparation. Each move was calculated, each response measured. The black belt's assumptions had been shattered in mere seconds. They had assumed that physical prowess and confidence would be enough, but they were now learning that strategy, focus, and self-belief could overpower raw experience and muscle. One black belt tried to regroup, but Keisha anticipated his movements. She shifted her stance, guided him gently yet decisively, and he too ended up on the floor. Every motion she made seemed effortless, but it was the result of years of dedication, practice, and mental training. She had honed her reflexes, studied body mechanics, and learned to remain calm under pressure. All of it had prepared her for this very confrontation. The spectators began to recognize the lesson unfolding. This was not just a physical display. It was a demonstration of mental strength, resilience, and focus. Keisha had faced doubt and underestimation all her life, and she was now turning that history into a powerful moment of proof. She was showing that determination and preparation could overcome even the most confident adversaries. The black belts, now fully on the ground, were stunned. They struggled to regain balance and control, but Keisha maintained her composed stance, ready for any sudden move. Her breathing was steady, her posture relaxed, yet every part of her was alert. She had become a master of timing and leverage, demonstrating that true skill was a combination of mind, body, and preparation. The crowd erupted in whispers and quiet applause. People were beginning to understand the depth of what they had witnessed. Keisha had turned an expected defeat into a moment of triumph. Her actions spoke louder than words ever could. They conveyed confidence, mastery, and an unwavering belief in her abilities. Spectators, many of whom had initially doubted her, were now filled with admiration and respect. Keisha allowed herself a brief, quiet smile. She had proven her point not for pride, but to show that capability is not always visible. Years of training in secret, enduring judgment and doubt, had prepared her for this exact scenario. Her perseverance had paid off. In just a few seconds, she had altered the perception of those around her, turning skeptics into witnesses of her undeniable skill. The black belts slowly got to their feet, shaken but gaining respect for her abilities. They had underestimated her, and now they acknowledged her strength and composure without needing to say a word. Keisha didn't need validation from them. She already knew her own power. But the shift in their expressions, from arrogance to humility, was a quiet acknowledgement of her achievement. Spectators approached her cautiously, still in awe. They wanted to know how she had learned such skill, how she remained so calm, and how she could turn a confrontation into a lesson without aggression. Keisha spoke softly, sharing her journey of practice and dedication. She explained that appearances were often misleading, and that confidence, focus, and preparation could change outcomes in ways people rarely expected. By the time the gym quieted down, the story of what had just occurred had begun to circulate. People who had doubted her, even for a second, now spoke with admiration. They had seen someone overcome assumptions and demonstrate strength, control, and confidence all at once. Keisha's actions became an inspiration, showing that resilience and skill could shine even when overlooked or underestimated. As she walked away from the center of the gym, Keisha felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had faced a challenge she had imagined countless times, and now she had transformed it into reality. The respect she had earned was a natural result of her preparation, focus, and calmness. She had turned what could have been intimidation into a demonstration of her capability, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. The impact of those few seconds extended beyond the gym. Keisha had shown that strength is not just physical, that appearances can be deceiving, and that preparation and self-belief are essential. Her quiet determination had created a story that would inspire others, proving that perseverance, focus, and confidence can overcome even the most confident challenges. She had turned underestimation into opportunity, and in doing so, changed how people perceived strength and skill. After the dust settled and the black belts were on the ground, the gym was silent for a moment. Everyone was processing what had just happened. Keisha stood calmly in the center, breathing evenly, her body relaxed but still aware of everything around her. The room felt different now. The tension had shifted into a mix of admiration, disbelief, and respect. People began to whisper, sharing their amazement at how quickly and precisely she had taken control of the situation. The black belts slowly rose to their feet, their expressions a mixture of surprise and humility. They had entered the gym with confidence, certain of their abilities, and now they were seeing the reality of skill and preparation that could not be judged by appearance alone. Keisha did not speak or gloat. She remained poised, letting her actions speak louder than words. She had proven her capabilities without aggression, using control, focus, and timing rather than brute force. Some spectators approached cautiously, still in awe. They asked questions, curious about how she had managed to respond so effectively and so quickly. Keisha smiled softly, explaining that it was a combination of years of practice, patience, and mental preparation. She emphasized that her strength wasn't just physical. It came from understanding movement, balance, and anticipating the actions of others. Her journey had been quiet and private, but in that moment, it had become a lesson for everyone present. The black belts, now more aware of her skill, nodded respectfully. They had underestimated her, and their pride had been challenged. One of them finally spoke, admitting that they had misjudged her abilities. Another added that her calmness and precision were remarkable. It was a quiet acknowledgement of respect, the kind that didn't need loud words or dramatic gestures. Keisha accepted it gracefully, understanding that the true measure of her achievement was in how she had demonstrated skill, control, and composure. The atmosphere in the gym slowly began to change. Where there had been skepticism and doubt, there was now admiration and curiosity. People were inspired by what they had witnessed. Many realized that assumptions based on appearance were often misleading. Keisha's actions had taught a simple yet powerful lesson. Skill, preparation, and inner confidence could overcome expectation and challenge. Keisha walked among the spectators, answering questions and offering gentle encouragement. She explained that she had faced doubt and judgment many times in her life, but she had used those experiences as motivation to improve and prepare. Her message was simple: no matter what others think, perseverance and belief in oneself could turn obstacles into opportunities. People listened intently, clearly moved by her words and presence. The black belts gathered themselves, discussing quietly among themselves. They realized that skill was more than muscle, and that confidence without strategy could lead to misjudgment. They respected her not only for her physical ability, but also for the way she had conducted herself. She had demonstrated mastery without hostility, turning a tense confrontation into a teaching moment for everyone present. Some of the spectators began to practice small movements under Keisha's guidance, inspired by what they had seen. She encouraged them gently, showing that skill could be developed by anyone willing to practice with focus and patience. Her presence became a source of inspiration, turning a single event into a community lesson about dedication, awareness, and self-confidence. As the gym began to quiet down, Keisha reflected on the moment. She knew that the confrontation had been a test of both skill and character. She had not only demonstrated her abilities but also shown the importance of calmness, strategy, and composure under pressure. Her confidence had not been loud or aggressive. It had been steady and quiet, rooted in preparation and belief in her own capabilities. The black belts approached her one by one, extending hands in acknowledgement. It was a sign of respect, a recognition of her skill and composure. Keisha accepted the gestures with grace, understanding that this was not about victory over others but about demonstrating the value of preparation, focus, and inner strength. The room seemed to resonate with this message, as spectators quietly absorbed the lesson of the moment. People began to talk more openly, sharing their impressions of Keisha's performance. They noted how she had transformed a potentially intimidating situation into a demonstration of skill and control. Her actions had shown that true strength comes from practice, understanding, and mental clarity. It was a reminder that appearances could be deceiving and that respect should be earned through actions rather than assumed. Keisha's calmness remained a central theme in how others perceived her. She did not rush, she did not boast, and she did not seek validation. Instead, she demonstrated that confidence grounded in preparation could overcome intimidation and assumption. Her approach inspired others to reflect on their own behavior, encouraging them to recognize hidden potential in themselves and others. The black belts, having regained their composure, began discussing the encounter among themselves. They acknowledged that they had been overconfident and had underestimated someone they perceived as weaker. Their lesson was clear. Skill and preparation could not be judged by appearance, and true mastery included control, awareness, and humility. Keisha spent the rest of the afternoon interacting with those who were curious about her approach. She answered questions about technique, preparation, and mental focus, always encouraging practice and perseverance. People left the gym with a renewed sense of inspiration, reflecting on the quiet power she had demonstrated. Keisha's presence had turned a simple confrontation into a broader lesson about self-belief, patience, and skill. The event also had a lasting impact on the black belts. They had learned firsthand the importance of humility and awareness. Their overconfidence had been challenged, and they had gained a newfound respect for Keisha's abilities. They understood that mastery was not just about strength or speed but about balance, focus, and strategic thinking. Keisha herself felt a quiet satisfaction. She had faced a challenge with poise and skill, proving not just to others but also to herself what she was capable of. Her journey had been filled with small victories, private moments of practice, and quiet perseverance. This confrontation was a culmination of all those efforts, a visible demonstration of the strength she had built over time. As the crowd began to leave, many lingered to watch Keisha demonstrate small techniques, eager to learn and inspired by her skill. She encouraged everyone to practice consistently and to focus on both mind and body. Her emphasis was on growth, patience, and self-confidence rather than competition or aggression. By the end of the day, the story of what had happened began to spread beyond the gym. People who had been present shared their experience with friends, family, and the wider community. Keisha's calm, precise, and effective response had left a lasting impression, inspiring others to rethink assumptions about ability, confidence, and strength. Keisha walked home quietly, reflecting on the day. She understood that the confrontation was more than just a physical encounter. It was a demonstration of perseverance, preparation, and inner belief. She had turned a moment of potential intimidation into a teaching experience for herself, the spectators, and even the black belts. The respect she had earned was genuine and lasting, and it came from the authenticity of her actions rather than any desire for recognition. Her journey was far from over, but this day marked a significant turning point. Keisha had shown that skill and confidence are built over time, through practice, resilience, and focus. She had proven that appearances could not determine capability, and that quiet determination could command respect without aggression. The lessons of the day would resonate not only with those who had witnessed the event, but also with anyone who heard her story, inspiring courage, focus, and self-belief. The next day, the gym was quieter, but the energy from the previous day lingered. Everyone who had witnessed Keisha's display of skill was still talking about it, amazed at what they had seen. Even those who hadn't been present had heard stories about the girl who had calmly taken on several black belts and come out in control. Her actions had left a mark, showing that true skill was more than appearances. Keisha arrived early at the gym, her usual calm demeanor in place. She had come to practice, to continue learning, and to improve. Even after the events of yesterday, she didn't feel the need to boast. For her, the satisfaction came from knowing she had applied her training with precision and composure. Her focus was on growth, not recognition. People approached her, curious and eager to learn. Some were beginners, nervous and unsure, and others were experienced fighters who wanted tips. Keisha welcomed them all, sharing her knowledge patiently. She demonstrated basic movements, explaining the importance of